Everyone knows the box. I mean, if you just picture that specific shade of blue, you immediately think of luxury, engagement rings, and just pure status.
Oh, yeah, it's an international symbol at this point.
Exactly. But today's deep dive isn't really about a box. We are looking at a detailed historical guide from Christie's regarding the history of Tiffany Co. And the first thing that struck me is how unlikely this whole empire actually is.
Right, because when you look at the source material, you realize this is a company that really had no business becoming a global superpower. It shouldn't have worked.
No, it shouldn't have. Our mission today is to trace how a simple stationery shop in Lower Manhattan somehow managed to buy up the French crown jewels and basically redefine American style. We're going to look at their evolution through their Big Four designers and see how they went from selling fancy goods to rivaling European royalty.
It's honestly a fascinating coming-of-age story for America itself, because we tend to think of Tiffany as this very static, safe, traditional brand. But in the 19th century, they were the absolute disruptors. They were teaching America how to be fancy.
Because America didn't really know how yet. So let's start at the beginning. In 1837, Charles Louis Tiffany and John Barnett Young establish a shop at 259 Broadway in New York.
Right. Originally called Tiffany and Young.
And if you walked in there in 1837, you were not seeing massive diamonds.
Not at all. You were seeing what they called small, fancy goods.
Which is such a polite 19th century way of saying, well, what exactly were they selling?
Basically, they were a high-end gift shop. They sold bouquet holders, walking sticks, purses. They even sold specialized soaps imported from Guerlain in Paris. It was just nice bric-a-brac for the well-to-do.
So how on earth do you pivot from selling imported soap to becoming a jewelry empire? That is a completely different business model.
It was driven entirely by Charles Tiffany reading the American market. He looked around and saw the Industrial Revolution creating this massive new class of wealth in the U.S. These people had a lot of money, but they had no heritage.
Right, they were insecure about their status compared to the old European aristocracy.
Exactly. So he decides, well, I'll just sell them that heritage. By 1845, he starts advertising French jewelry. Then in 1853, he buys out his partners, renames the firm to Tiffany Co., and shifts the focus entirely to luxury.
And to compete with Europe, he knew he had to dominate the supply chain. Which brings up this detail in the Christie's guide that I found so surprising. Before they were really known as the Diamond Kings, their first big move into hard luxury was actually watches.
Yes, horology. They established a relationship with Patek Philippe way back in 1851.
Which is just massive validation, right? Patek is the gold standard of Swiss watchmaking.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a brilliant strategic alliance. In 1855, Antoine Norbert de Patek actually visited the Tiffany store in New York.
And he took a massive order, didn't he?
He did. He was so impressed by the sheer volume of their business and their clientele that he left with an order for 129 watches.
129 Patek Philippe's for a store that was selling walking sticks a decade prior.
It was a massive flex. It signaled to the world that Tiffany was the new gatekeeper for the absolute best goods on the planet.
Okay, so they locked down the Swiss mechanics. But let's talk about the diamonds, because this is the part of the guide that reads like a heist movie to me. In 1850, they open a Paris branch. And then in 1887, everything changes.
The 1887 sale of the French crown jewels. This is the ultimate aha moment for the brand.
Contextualize this for us, because today, a jewelry brand buying stones at auction sounds pretty standard. Why was this specific sale such a big deal?
Well, you have to look at the political climate in France at the time. The French Third Republic was actively trying to distance itself from the monarchy, so they made this drastic decision to just sell off the treasures of the state. We're talking crowns, diadems, pieces that literally belonged to Empress Eugenie.
And Tiffany just shows up to the auction.
Tiffany shows up and completely dominates the room. They spent nearly $500,000 at that auction.
$500,000 in 1887? I mean, that is an astronomical amount of capital to tie up in inventory. Was that just Charles Tiffany showing off?
It was a highly calculated marketing risk. By buying the bulk of the collection, he basically cornered the market on royal provenance.
Ah, so he brings these pieces back to New York.
Yes, and suddenly you have a Mrs. Vanderbilt or a Mrs. Astor who can wear a diamond that literally sat on the head of French royalty.
He's selling instant legitimacy to people who just built railroads.
Precisely. It allowed these American industrial tycoons to buy a piece of European history. It was this massive symbolic shift of power from the old world to the new world. The press went completely wild for it, and that is when they dubbed him the King of Diamonds.
It's just genius. But the guide also points out this fascinating duality. While they were buying up Europe's past, they were also trying to define America's future.
Right, the whole push for American pride and luxury.
Yeah, as national pride was growing in the mid-19th century, Tiffany started pivoting to sourcing materials domestically. During the gold rush era, so roughly 1848 to 1855, they were sourcing all their gold and silver from within the U.S.
And the gemstone hunt is even more interesting. They didn't just want American metal, they wanted American stones. They found freshwater pearls in U.S. rivers in the 1850s, tourmalines up in Mount Mica, Maine.
And we have to talk about the blue pebbles.
Oh, the Montana sapphires. This is a great story.
So in 1894, you have these gold miners in Yogo Creek, Montana, working their sluices. And they keep finding these annoying blue pebbles mixed in with the gold.
And they were just tossing them aside. They thought they were a nuisance clogging up the work.
They were throwing away high-quality sapphires.
Incredible.
Right.
Once they were officially recognized as high-quality cornflower blue sapphires, Tiffany immediately jumped on the supply.
But the Christie's guide highlights this wild turning of the tables. The quality of some of these American stones, specifically lapis lazuli and amethyst, became so high that Tiffany actually started exporting them to Paris.
It is a complete reversal of the dynamic. 50 years prior, they were desperate to import French soap to seem classy. Now they are exporting premium American rocks to European jewelers.
So Charles Tiffany builds this massive empire on intrinsic value, big diamonds, solid gold, royal history. But then he dies in 1902, and his son, Louis Comfort Tiffany, takes over the artistic direction.
Which is a massive, massive shift in the company's DNA.
Because Louis started as a painter and a glassmaker, right? He's the guy behind Tiffany Studios and those famous stained glass lamps.
Exactly. He was one of the leading figures of the Art Nouveau movement in the U.S., and he actually came to jewelry design pretty late in his career, in the early 1900s.
And his style could not have been more different from his father's. Charles was a merchant who cared about the carat weight of a stone. Louis was an artist.
He was entirely focused on nature. He wasn't interested in setting a massive 10-carat solitaire diamond. He was designing wildflowers, wild berries, dandelions, dragonflies.
And the materials he used were super controversial for a high-end jeweler. The guide mentions he used Favral glass and enamel, mixing them with those semi-precious Montana sapphires and Maine tourmalines.
Imagine being a wealthy banker, used to buying pure diamonds as a financial investment. And suddenly the top jeweler in town is pitching you a necklace made of glass and enamel.
It's a huge risk. He was trying to shift the entire value proposition of luxury. He wanted the value to be in the artistry, not just the intrinsic monetary value of the raw materials.
And it worked. Louis Comfort Tiffany officially sold his own jewelry business to Tiffany Co. in 1907. He proved that the brand could be truly avant-garde, not just a commercial diamond dealer.
But then the brand hits a really rough patch. You have the Great Depression and then World War II. Luxury obviously takes a huge hit.
It was a very dormant period that really needed a revival.
And that brings us to the post-war Renaissance. In 1955, Walter Hoving takes over to turn things around. And he makes a crucial hire.
Jean Schlumberger,
Whoa.
a Parisian designer who actually started out making costume jewelry for Elsa Schiaparelli.
Hoving
Brought him and Nicolas Bongard on board to give Tiffany a completely fresh look.
The guide describes Schlumberger's style as whimsical, but when you look at the pieces, they are structurally so complex. He used nature as a muse, but specifically marine life.
Yeah, he had an obsession with things like sea urchins and barnacles.
You do not scream high jewelry to me. Barnacles.
On paper, it sounds bizarre, but he interpreted them with such incredible architectural precision. And he's one of the few designers that Tiffany ever allowed to actually sign their work.
And he's the mind behind perhaps their most famous piece, The Bird on a Rock.
Yes. So back in 1878, Charles Tiffany had acquired this massive rough diamond for $18,000. It was cut down to a 128.54 carat yellow diamond, the Tiffany Yellow Diamond.
The anchor of their Diamond King reputation.
Right. And for decades, it was just this very serious, heavy stone. Schlumberger comes along and decides to perch a little jeweled bird right on top of it.
It's so cheeky. It's like saying we have the most important diamond in the world and we're going to use it as a bird perch.
It perfectly defined that mid-century jet set era. This is when Tiffany achieves ultimate celebrity cult status.
Yeah.
You have Audrey Hepburn posing with the yellow diamond for the breakfast at Tiffany's publicity.
Even though the jewel wasn't actually in the movie itself.
Exactly. And then you have Richard Burton buying Elizabeth Taylor the dolphin brooch which was this stunning sapphire and emerald Schlumberger piece, for the premiere of Night of the Iguana.
Jackie Kennedy was also a huge fan, right? She famously wore his two-fruit clip in rubies and diamonds.
It was peak high society glamour.
Yeah.
But then, as we move into the modern icons section of the guide, that dynamic changes drastically. In 1974, they bring in Elsa Peretti.
The minimalists.
Yes. And this is arguably the most important cultural pivot in their history. Her vibe was modern, tactile, sensual.
And she worked primarily in silver. After the massive diamonds of the Schlumberger era, how did the market react to a pivot back to silver?
It was a massive success because it made silver luxury fashionable again. You have to look at the cultural context of 1974. Women are entering the workforce in record numbers. They're making their own money.
They aren't waiting for a husband to buy them a ruby clip.
Exactly. Peretti designed pieces like the bone cuff, the open heart, the bean. These were affordable, yet iconic designs that attracted a completely new, younger clientele.
I love looking at the bone cuff. It doesn't look like delicate decoration. It almost looks like armor.
It was empowering. It was perfect for the era. And financially, her impact was staggering. The Christie's guide notes that by 2015, Elsa Peretti's designs accounted for nearly 10% of Tiffany's total net sales.
That is incredible staying power. But then, as if to prove they can play every side of the market, just 6 years later in 1980, they bring in Paloma Picasso.
The power dresser. She is the daughter of Pablo Picasso and Françoise Gillot, discovered by Tiffany's design director John Loring when she was just 16 in Venice.
And if Peretti was the quiet, sleek confidence of the 70s, Picasso is the screaming excess of the 80s.
Totally. Her style was bold, colorful, and utilized massive stones. It was the epitome of 80s power dressing. You couldn't wear a delicate silver bean with a giant, shoulder-padded power suit. You needed something loud.
The guide mentions she used a 159-carat sapphire and a 284-carat peridot. Just gigantic, aggressive stones.
And it's amazing that you could walk into a Tiffany store in the 80s and buy Peretti's smooth, affordable silver on one floor and Picasso's massive, expensive, colorful rocks on another.
It shows how broad their appeal had become. Now, before we wrap up, we have to touch on the visual identity that ties all this together, the blue and the yellow.
Yes, the Tiffany blue.
The guide gives us the technical backstory here. It wasn't just a random color choice. It actually originated way back in 1845.
It was the color they chose for the cover of the Blue Book, which was actually the very first mail-order catalog in the United States.
Which is a crazy fun fact on its own.
And today, that specific shade is a custom Pantone color, PMS 1837.
Named after the year the company was founded.
Right. It's brilliant branding.
So when you look at this whole timeline, from selling stationery and soap, to buying the French crown jewels, to Art Nouveau glass, to 80s power jewelry, what is the real takeaway here? Because on paper, it looks like 4 or 5 completely different companies.
The main takeaway from the Christie's guide is that Tiffany's survival depended entirely on constant reinvention. The enduring legacy isn't really the diamonds. It's their willingness to let distinct artistic voices like Schlumberger, Peretti, Picasso actually sign their work and completely change the aesthetic of the company to match the times.
They never let their heritage trap them.
Exactly. We always think of heritage brands as static. But Tiffany's history proves that to actually stay classic, you have to be radically modern for your time.
Which really leaves you with a provocative thought. If Louis Comfort Tiffany, who was so radical in the early 1900s, were alive today, what would he be doing? Given his obsession with artistry over the intrinsic value of a stone, would he even be using diamonds? Or would he be experimenting with completely new, lab-grown, non-precious materials?
That is a great question. I suspect he'd be pushing the boundaries with materials we don't even consider luxury yet.
Well, it gives you something to think about the next time you see that little blue box. It's not just holding a piece of jewelry. It's holding a crazy history of risk, heists, miners, and radical artists. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.